Okay, guys, we are live. Hi, welcome everyone. Here is my friend Keith once again. We were going to talk about how HellDivers 2 did it best in comparison, especially to Games Workshop, how they did it, and what we have right now as a situation between the two. So, hi to you, Kit.
Hey, it's good to be back on your show again. A lot has transpired since the last time we were on. Apparently, the Emperor's now gender fluid. And hold on, let me mute my phone now. I need to
Uh,
keep on remembering that
well, for
live on
goodness
air.
sakes, I'm really happy that that's just one guy that wrote an article 1 year ago and that's
Yes,
not actually official. So, thank
yes,
God.
yes, 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 yes. So thank goodness for that. But it is important that we look in comparison in regards to how intellectual properties, treat their fandom. And we brought this up the first time, and that is, and I don't think I would have had so much of a problem with a woman custodians if it was done with a little bit more care, if it was done not just half-assed, if it was actually, reasonable and would seem like okay. And instead of just saying they were always there, maybe this would have been just a rarity, just an absolute rarity of a person. But no, and then Games Workshop says it's been there for like they've been like that for 10,000 years. And then, of course, you have them attacking or shadow banning fans from their network. And, people remember how Games Workshop went after the fandom when people were uploading, like, their own fan made projects, their own artwork, and everything else. And I guess a lot of people in Games Workshop, rightfully so, have every right to once again be enraged with Games Workshop and how it's disrespectful. But this is a death blow to a community. And then you have Helldivers 2 to be more precise. And just look at how vastly popular this game is, and so many people are tuning in. I've been watching all sorts of content creators from various genres on social media talking about experiencing it, having a good time. But sometime in February, a few articles came out saying that Helldivers 2 was problematic, that it was anti-LGBTQ, that it was being transphobe or bigoted, or there were racists there. And the thing is, look, you're going to run into bad apples in any community, but to say that the overall brand is a problem, that deserves, people to really look into this. Like, is Helldivers 2 a problem? And the answer is no, it's not. I
Yeah,
think it's
that is
because
just
maybe
like
they're not.
saying that anything, absolutely anything, is a problem because somebody decided it's a problem because it's a problem because they're
Mhm,
crazy. I mean, there's no basis for this whatsoever. They just wanted the freaking LGBT flag shoved in
mhm,
into the game for absolutely no reason. And then,
mhm,
when you do this, they will probably want anything else, really. And that
mhm.
opens the game to dilute itself into absolute mess that will reflect the real world right now. And Helldivers 2 is obviously a fictional world and does not need to have anything from our real world injected into it because then it's going to totally defeat the purpose of freaking escapism, which that is what
Right.
games are supposed to be and movies.
You
So, yeah, continue.
well, okay. So I understand like why people would want to put in the flag, right? But here in America, especially when it comes down to the corporations, when you see the institutions pandering, they don't believe. They don't believe in any of that stuff. These corporations are only trying to get the check mark points of approval so that way they're not canceled or vilified on social media. And the thing is, more people are starting to see it. And would introducing the LGBTQ flag into Helldivers 2 change anything? No, it wouldn't. It would just have been seen as pandering. It would have just been there for a moment. But, we when we look at video games, comic books, movies, stories, anything of that nature, you mentioned escapism. And look, if done properly, a science fiction series, fantasy realm could make you wonder or think about, modern day or current events happening here. But the whole point of it is to escape the problems in the end all be all dreary world that we are in. I mean, we got enough things impacting us and hitting us all the time 24/7. The last thing I want to do is see it in my video games or be lectured at in comic books and movies. There are comics, there are games, and there are series that do a better job integrating into science fiction, having it front and center all the time 24/7. People are yawning and getting tired of it. Look at the lack of interest in Star Wars and Star Trek and look at the absolute pushback that Games Workshop is getting from the fandom for the female custodians. And I don't think there would have been, again, so much pushback or anger. And we should focus on this because of how Games Workshop treats its fans. And the whole purpose of that institution, Games Workshop, is to make miniatures, sell miniatures. That's what you're supposed to do at the end of the day. And that's going to attract a niche market. Then you have people who like to read the books. You got people who like to play the video games, but more or less it all goes back to the miniatures. And then when you look at the lore behind it, if you're going to be doing this and trying to attract a new audience, Games Workshop, it may not work the way you want it to work. Whereas HellDivers, it put out a product out there and everyone just went right into it. The whole escapism. We must defend super arts, defend democracy, as anyone would want to know more about. Okay, explain to me about HellDivers. Tell me about the lore. And that's what inspires me to really, look at this and say, okay, if a corporation is going to treat people right, then okay, people are going to keep on coming in. But if an institution doesn't, well, then people will, of course, back away and leave it. I want to give the floor back to you.
Okay, just let you know that your camera comes and goes in quality. I mean, it's highly
Oh
pixelated
no,
most of the time.
I am very, 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 very sorry about that.
If it's the
Sorry about
internet
that.
or something.
I think I hold on. Let me see if I could fix it here real quick. So hold on. I shall return.
Okay. In the meantime, guys, in the meantime, Kit, I'm gonna replace you for a second there. And hi to everybody in the chat. That is awesome that people are joining in. So, hi to Light Wolf Red. He said, I hope Games Workshop doesn't keep up the woke stuff. Sure, there have been retcons before, but this is purely for wokeism points, it seems. Yes, and also, as we have talked before, yeah, you look a lot better now. You look a lot better.
Thank goodness. Oh, thank you.
Yes,
I try.
that's a lot better. Awesome. As we have talked about, I mean, this is probably our, my own, and of course, Keith as well has been here about this topic. But yeah, this is like the fourth video that kind of touches upon the whole thing with Games Workshop. And guys, we have discussed the lore and we have discussed what is the difference between a very hardcore retcon where you take something that is concrete, set in stone, because we did know without any shadow of a doubt that the custodians are men, and then all of a sudden Games Workshop with this absolute audacity just tells everyone, especially like imagine people that have been in the hobby for more than 20 years and they're just like, hey, the custodians, they were always having females in their ranks, and that is of course an absolute lie. So we have a corporation that lies straight directly, and we have a retcon of the lore that just defeats the purpose of the wonder and amazement and uniqueness of each and every faction, because as many people actually pointed out in the comments of the previous stream yesterday, that the fact that one faction is male and one faction is female is just amazing, and they complement each other literally like men and women complement each other in real life. When the Sisters of Silence come and fight with the custodians, alongside with the custodians, and they have the no gene, and that allows them to protect custodians and themselves from psychic powers. That's amazing. And when they come together, they have this epic reunion, fight, do whatever, and then they separate, they do their own thing, let's say, and that's amazing. And that actually reminded me of a very good example. You know how Xena used to go to Hercules in his own show, and he was also coming to her own show. And when they got together, although they're different type of heroes, because Xena is coming from a place where she was evil before, she had to change, and to overcome all of that, Hercules actually helped her do that. But Hercules is very pure. He's the opposite. He comes only from good. And they do things differently. Xena is a warrior. She kills many times. Hercules does not like to kill that much. It's just different. But when they come together, this magic of these two different heroes that they do right every time, although they have a bit of a different methods to do so. So what is going to happen if you make Xena exactly like Hercules, and if you make Hercules exactly like Xena? arena. It would totally defeat their individuality and what makes them different and special. And it's kind of like with the custodes. So you're not making the custodes any favors by doing this, and you're not making Sisters of Battle any favors by doing this to the custodes as well. And then if it doesn't matter, because one of the most often excuses for all of this, all of these things that are happening, is that, well, what is going to happen if you just add this and you add that? Like, what does it matter, what it is to you? Like, what is the freaking problem? And to that I say, well, if it doesn't matter, why are we doing it? Why are we forcing it? If it doesn't really matter, then why are you wanting it so bad to be inside? Is it like for some propaganda reason, to put something into our faces to force it upon us? We can like
I
see it
think
all the time.
I
Yes,
think I
that's the
understand.
reason. That's the answer, but you don't want to admit it.
There's a little bit more to this, and that is, you know, in 2016 through 2020, when Trump was president, you had a lot of people in the media sector here in America, especially those covering different genres, video games, entertainment, trying to latch on to by saying this is problematic or this talks about the current political situation in this country and everything else, because it all comes down to dollars. And the thing is, you have people, on the one hand, maybe you have some who do want representation, who do want, fairness and equality, but they're few and far between. What you have is a lot of opportunistic writers who, which I like to call write articles in which the rent is due. And of course, corporations who see these kind of articles or see these kind of things online and be like, oh, well, we got to change our way. And not to mention knowing that BlackRock and Vanguard are heavily invested into a lot of media here in America because of, again, our Supreme Court allowing corporations to really have their fun here with our media. Our media is controlled like by 5 corporations here in the states alone, and Vanguard and BlackRock are huge investors into it. Of course, you're going to have people who want to make that money and climb up that corporate media ladder by writing articles saying, "Oh, Games Workshop is problematic," or "the fans are problematic because they don't like, female custodians." I want to pull up an article here. It's from February of this year in regards to HellDivers, and this is something that I like to call the rent was due. The rent was due in their fancy apartment. So they talk about HellDivers. A video game has reinvigorated a long-running debate about fascism and satire. HellDivers 2 has prompted a debate on social media. Is the game actual satire of fascism? And if so, it is worrying that some people don't seem aware of it. Now, this article is talking down to people. This article is basically saying to you, the viewing audience, that number one, people are too stupid to see the story behind HellDivers 2, or number two, people are willing to accept it. When I look at Super Earth, I understand that it's a horrific government, but it's fun. You turn your brain off and join your friends to shoot robots and giant bugs. You're having fun with friends. You're escaping the world because probably, you got an hour of free time to play a video game and you hang out with your buddies. And it goes on to say, HellDivers 2, a hit video game from Arrowhead Game Studios, challenges players to work together as an elite team of soldiers to save the Earth by pushing back invading hordes of space bugs, cyborgs, robots, you name it. It's a simple propaganda kind of game that's based on Starship Troopers, which again is a satire. The game lays it on thick, with cutscenes bordering on comedy that tout Earth's united militaristic regime having already plundered the galaxy. And the article then goes on to say, and focuses on it, that we need to have that these online discussions, at times debate around the game, has echoed some broader pop culture discourse around challenges and dangers of using satire in media that can sometimes be subtle or lost on lots of people, particularly around the subject of fascism. Some players have sought to distance themselves from the topic altogether, while others have leaned into the conversation, posting about the importance of the game's satirical message. It's about having fun. Now, Arrowhead Studio acknowledged that they banned some people because they believed not only were they breaking community guidelines, but also because they were posting up some problematic posts. But they never said that they were anti anything. They're just there to create a game and update it for the viewing supporters and people who have paid and purchased the game. It's not about supporting a message or anything. It's about making an entertaining product. And right now, HellDivers 2 is extremely hot. And because they didn't put in one flag Well, then, okay, if you're going to put in that flag, are you going to put in every other flag? Do you have any more people want to see the weapons and more armaments and everything else to play the game, to fight the cyborgs, to fight the robots, to fight this potential third faction? It's about having fun. People are not there to be lectured to. We get enough of that already.
No one is. No one is anywhere to be lectured to in reality. So, yeah, horrible
Well,
world we live in.
well, no, it's more of just you have you have people who want to make them front and center. It's the same thing like with Gamergate, or people trying to make Gamergate 2.0 happen all over again. In any community, you will have some problematic people. But to say that it's the entire fandom, to say that, oh, what, all Helldiver people who play the game are secretly fascist or either that aren't aware of the propaganda, are you certain about that? What facts and information are you bringing up? And at least Arrowhead Studios is protecting its fandom. At least Arrowhead Studios wants to create a safe community because there's always going to be people causing trouble. But they're looking out for everyone in general so they could play a game and be a soldier to fight off these monsters, these robots, to play a game. Same thing and this is something that Games Workshop needs to remember too. You can't talk down to people. You cannot just say this is how it is. It's the fault of Games Workshop for not really putting all into their energy into promoting a story about a female custodian. If you're going to do that, you have to treat this gingerly, or either that just can't say it's always been there. Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
was Spider-Man always wearing a pink costume? Was Superman always from the center of the Earth? No, he never was. Superman was from the planet Krypton. Spider-Man never wore a pink costume. All that kind of stuff.
great
And the only
analogies,
reason why,
kid. Actually, pretty good.
well, it's just you just can't throw something out there. And I understand that Games Workshop creates Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40k as fluid, like things are always bound to change. But the whole idea of this is that there's so much history lost in the 40k universe. But the one thing that has been consistent is the custodians and the Space Marines, Thunder Warriors as well, have always been identified as male. That has seemed to be centered and locked in, just like the Primarchs. And when the fandom asks questions, Games Workshop, why are you doing this? Automatic ban, automatic discontinuation, or being talked down to. And then, of course, this is where the articles come in. Oh, Games Workshop has a problematic community. Games Workshop has a problem with its fans. And so, Games Workshop, you are not in the luxury, you don't have the luxury of treating your fandom and your supporters like how Star Wars and Star Trek and Marvel did. Because for a while, there was a lot of goodwill in those three intellectual properties. But then even normal people started getting pushed out. Who are you selling your product to? You have to remember where you came from. Just like that scene from The Lion King when Simba's father, shows his face in the clouds and he looks down to Simba and says, "Remember who you are." Games Workshop, remember who you are, right? And yes, there are bad people in every single community. I get that. But you have a dedicated fan base asking you, why did you do this? What is going on here? And then you start shadow banning people, start dismissing people. Of course, people respond back, well, I'm canceling my Warhammer Plus, or I'm not buying anything from you guys. You don't have that luxury. Helldivers 2, though, its studio not only handled it properly, but made it explicitly clear that they are there to serve everybody to have fun shooting robots and giant bugs. Big difference between the two, night and day. And that's something that Arrowhead Studios should look at Games Workshop and wonder, like, I can't really do what they did, because when you lose your fans, you lose your revenue.
Exactly. And I don't know why things can't be just simpler, why those people have to go into absolutely everything and just try to destroy it. And based on what? Based on absolutely nothing, you know? And I'm going to bring up Xena again, but for a good reason.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead. No. I think it's important we do bring it up because she has been viewed by the LGBTQ community as a leading figure. I mean, obviously, it's hinted that she might have had a relationship with Gabriella. There's a lot of hints around that, but she's a strong character that I root for. I remember her being on television. I remember Xena Warrior Princess and the challenges she faced, but she earned my respect. Same way with Sarah Connor or Ellen Ripley. Is that Xena also got defeated too. There were moments where she was fragile and needed help, or save the day. I mean, look, in a toe-to-toe slug match, I know Xena would kick my ass. I get that. I mean, I get that 100%. But she has shown moments of being, surprise, surprise, a complex character of emotions. If you were to try and tell Xena's story again, she would be undefeatable 24/7. Like, you
Yes,
wouldn't
but
worry, you
that's
wouldn't be on edge for her.
another. I mean, what happened with the whole show and what the show had in it is actually perfectly relevant today by showing how you should do it. So it's not only about the writing of a female character and characters, but it's also about the diversity that Xena had. Also, there was a transgender character in season 2. The episode was called Miss Amphipolis, and literally, Xena had to enter undercover a beauty contest in which he had to discover who is killing the contestants themselves. And it turns out that it's
Ah,
about the war between countries and all of that, so on. But from one of them, there was a man disguised, sorry, as a woman, but it was literally a transgender man. And it was just a wonderful story. And honestly, like imagine me watching this as a kid. I never felt that this was pushed on to me. I understood this person, this character. I understood where that character was coming from, and it was very compelling and very interesting. It was just fascinating to watch, but in a very genuine way. It was not forced in any kind of a way. Then you have a lot of black actors also in Xena, and mind you, Xena is a show about myths and legends in ancient Greece. So there's not supposed to be any people of color at that time, especially not black people in particular. So, I mean, yeah, in general, but it's still a fantasy show, and they use that to integrate a lot of actors that are literally black actors. They were absolutely amazing in their roles. And as a kid, once again, I never once thought, oh my gosh, what is this person doing here? Because it's ancient Greece. Yes, it's a bit weird in general, but when the actors are very good and compelling and all those things, and when you know it's a fantasy show, you can give it a pass. You cannot give it a pass if it's a historical show, like with the Cleopatra thing and the Netflix scandal and all of that, you cannot. But when it's a fantasy show, you can give it a pass to a certain extent. But my point is that back then, when people were complaining, I mean, people are complaining that before there were no diversity, before there was no like representation. But that's quite the opposite. There's not only Xena, although in Xena a lot of things were ahead of their time, but they was just done right. But I can think of other shows as well that also had great Asian actors, black actors, some LGBT stuff, like, for example, Willow from Buffy. And all of that, I think, was done tastefully to my memory. I mean, the other shows, but with Xena, because I watched every episode quite a few times, I can say full-heartedly that everything was done very, very tastefully, and it was not very often. Absolutely, the thing with Zina and Gabrielle wasn't on the nose, wasn't actually even a fact. I mean, what it was like later confirmed, but outside of the show, which I don't count really, because it was never established as a fact in the show at all. They always had men in their lives, mainly Zina, especially. Gabrielle had one husband anyways. So whatever happened, it was just, how is the word for that? Naturally, truthfully. It was the most amazing thing ever because it wasn't artificial at all. So that is how we should just do everything and not be like, oh, let's just take this flag and shove it into Spider-Man, the game, and into everything that we can. Why? I mean, what is this flag is going to do? I mean, I grew up in Bulgaria. I'm still in Bulgaria, and here these things were never like on the top of everything like it is now. Now they're not still on the top of everything, but let's say, my parents were listening to Boy George, and I found out that he was a gay man and all of that. Then we had other singers like that, and I knew that they were gay, but that was absolutely fine. And
Well,
nobody
what it
said anything against these people at all. They just accepted them as they are, and we understood, and that was it. We're moving on. We don't need to be pointed out. And I was listening to a lot of artists as well, like Whitney Houston and others, and never even crossed my mind that she's black for a second. I'm like, she's Whitney Houston. Like, what does it matter? I mean, nobody is like, hey, Gary, do you know that she's black? Well, yeah, of course, but that's never on the top of my mind. She's a great, amazing actress. Sorry, artist, also an actress, but she was one of the best singers ever in history. Michael Jackson as well. I was a fan of Janet Jackson at one point. So all of that was just natural and awesome. And now everything is like, look at this, look at this, look at this, zombify, zombify. Like, why do we need this? We were already like,
it's
okay, naturally with everything.
what it we have to remember. See, here we got the Library of Alexandria. Our cell phones, our laptops, our computers in front of us. Like we have screen technology in front of us 24/7. Even when we're outside the house, we still have our cell phones on us. And the thing is, when we need some distraction or some time waiting, we go ahead and turn on our cell phones. And the thing is, the reason why what we're seeing now wasn't as prevalent as it was is because the media influence and outreach. And when you have a media system, a um, institution that thrives off of clickbaiting, you want to build a base and you want to create outrage and you want to try and get public opinion on your side. And there was a point, especially after 2016, where articles like this talking about problematic video games or comic books or movies did gain a lot of support. But now people are pushing back at it. And the reason why is because we're being lectured to, or either that said products and companies are no longer valuable and people are not interested in it. Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel Comics, DC Comics. People are just, well, I remember when these things used to be entertaining and fun. Now I feel like I'm being lectured to. And that's what's causing a decline. And when you have people who say Games Workshop is problematic, it's a desperate attempt to get relevancy. It's a desperate attempt to try and shame people, and it's also a desperate attempt to try and get a one-upsmanship over anyone else over social media. It is all just a game of who could talk a bigger game. And while Games Workshop, probably being a company, will go with the writers of the established articles and news outlets, I just want to remind Games Workshop that Vice and BuzzFeed and a lot of other online outlets not only have gone bankrupt, but some have officially closed their doors and are no longer the power force as they are. Just like a lot of gaming journal magazines that are out there. They are, too are losing their base because when you start saying all gamers are problematic, well, if I'm problematic or if you think well, then why would I want to read your article? Why would I be subscribed? Why would I follow you guys if I'm going to be told I'm a bad person and I'm just voicing my opinion and concern about where said product or game is going? And that's why now when you see people push back, they're going to say like, "Oh, well, all the fans are problematic." Games Workshop, you can't afford. You are in no position to upset your viewing base or your buyers or your supporters. HellDivers too understands this, I think, to a degree, where so millions upon millions of people are playing this game. Millions of people have made memes and art and tributes to HellDivers and how much fun it is. You want as a corporation and entity outlet, you're supposed to entertain. And yes, you want to treat people equally. I get that too. I want to see everybody happy. All right. I want to see people happy. And when I say that, it's just like, come on, we can all just learn to escape, but we don't have to be lectured to and have to have things put in front of us when people are just trying to escape. Just leave the dreary world just for 2 hours to play a game, pretend to be somebody else and not get lectured to. And with Games Workshop, how it handled the whole thing with the custodians, you could have done a better job. You could have introduced it far more better or made a more realistic story in regards to why there was a female custodian. But when you add in a female custodian, like I said before, you're dismissing all the badass women that have come before. Sisters of Silence, Sisters of Battle, the knights, the Titan pilots, the admirals, the generals, the lord governors, the inquisitors, the women who are part of the Adeptus Mechanicus. I can keep on going on and on and on. It's like, are you aware that you have all these other women characters and all these other women factions? And by the way, to those who are saying, well, there's no, you don't want to see a strong woman custodian, there have been planetary governors, women, who have gone up to Astartes and told them to F off, or either that have given them like their own, like put them in their place. Okay, that has happened in Warhammer 40k, where women have stood up against the super space marines and actually had some sharp words and wit with them. So I don't want to hear the fact of, oh, well, you're afraid of a custodian. No, it's just make it make sense. If they were always identified as men, or that's how it was done, or you're going to add in something new, you really got to explain how this happened, not just, oh, it's always like that. No, people got questions. Why was it always like that? Why are you doing that?
Yeah. But that
Sorry,
begs the
that's
question.
my little rant.
Okay. That does beg the question why, since 2016, I think, we are fed this nonsense. Whereas before everything was normal.
It
I
was
mean,
profitable. It was profitable for a time.
well, I don't know. This is like literally taking something, making a problem out of it, and pretending that there's a problem, and then try to fix the problem that didn't exist in the first place. I mean, obviously, there's still people in the world that are sexist and all of those things that you can say, but those are few and far in between in comparison to the majority that grew up already with all kinds of representation in their lives. And other funny thing is that recently I watched one of, actually a few of Wesley Nielsen's funny movies. You know, he has a lot of funny movies. That guy, rest in peace. What a great actor. And there's quite a few of other people there, like black actors, like I think Asian actors as well. And we're literally told that in older movies there are no diversity, and I'm like, what? I grew up with a lot of movies, of Arnold and these movies like Hot Shots. You can just name a lot of movies. There's always representation there, but not for the representation's sake. They actually pick people because they are right for the roles. And
Mm-hmm.
how many Jackie Chan movies I have seen? I can't count them. They're pretty much a ton. Never even thought once again, oh, he's Asian. I'm not gonna watch him. Like, what? What is this? What is this? This is
Well,
absolute cancer.
Hollywood is an area of also trying to project, I guess, their perception of reality onto the masses, and that's been pushed back. And when you have an institution like Hollywood, it's not how good you are, it's who you know. And because Hollywood is in its own bubble, you have this West Coast mentality amongst the upper echelon elite, especially those who have positions of power in the Hollywood industry, that feel like their perspective of the worldview is correct and that everyone will go along with it. And the problem is you're seeing the perspective of what in a lot of major films, the institutions or what Hollywood is deeming like this is how the rest of the world should be. And when we do Star Wars or Star Trek or Marvels, we're gonna add all this in here too. Where's the fun at? I mean, can anyone say ever since Endgame, Marvel Endgame, have any of the recent Marvel products or movies have been fun? Save for Spider-Man, save for the Spider-Man series, did anyone just have fun watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe on Disney Plus or watching any of the more recent movies? Are you having fun? Because going to a movie, you're having fun. You're supposed to be entertained. I can't see anyone having fun at some of these recent movies that have come out. Same thing for video games. Same thing for like Star Wars. Are you having fun? Are you truly having fun playing these games, or are you getting lectured to? When you also look at the Disney Plus series for Star Wars, or even that Willow. Disney had to remove Willow from its streaming services. That's how bad Willow sucked because they too also were pandering to a lot of people, or either that trying to make the bad guy or the evil queen into a misunderstood character. No, she wasn't. She was a horrible tyrant. She turned people into pigs.
Just
She was.
like
She was. She was.
Maleficent and other
Yes.
another villains, they just try to make them misunderstood instead admitting that they're really bad people.
Like if I want to sympathize with a villain, I mean there are certain characters where you're like okay I could see why they fell to this way, or or what led them down that path. But they're supposed to be the bad guy, the antagonist. And while they can have a complex story, if I have an antagonist who's committing genocide, it's hard to really sympathize and say he's misunderstood if he's deliberately blowing up cities or ruining the lives of millions of people or anything like that nature. I mean, Darth Vader fell to the dark side, but he did turn a blind eye as Alderaan was blown up, as well as he committed many other genocides. Sympathetic character, yes, but is he misunderstood? No, he knew what he was doing.
He killed
Vader knew what he was
kids.
doing.
He
Yeah,
killed
he
kids.
did. He killed kids. He did that, and he also and then you have Thanos, and people said, "Oh, Thanos is right." Well, I don't know about all that, but Thanos, being a tyrant, you could see his perspective. He defends his worldview. It's a horrific worldview, but he defends it, and he believes that he is in the right. Misunderstood. He was a tyrant. He was a monster who successfully killed half the galaxy. You got to stop this dude, or he's gonna try and do an Uno reverse card on him, so that way he doesn't have the victory, and there could be a balance being put back on. I feel like when you have all these new writers come in, they want to make their mark, and since Hollywood is a place where good ideas go to die, they latch themselves onto intellectual properties, knowing full well that they can never do what they really want to do, and that's do their own original story, because Hollywood doesn't want to take that risk, and Hollywood only has short-term profit on their mindset.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, I don't know where to begin with all of this, but it's pretty sad and it's pretty horrible. But yeah, when you asked, did I had fun basically with the latest Marvel movies, it's very hard to tell. I mean, it's like fast food. You just consume it, and then you're satisfied for 2 seconds, and then you forget about it. It's not
Yeah.
like staying with you at all. I mean, I liked Wonder Vision as a TV show. It was fascinating, but then they ruined Wanda in the Doctor Strange movie. Although overall I liked the movie and some of the things in it, but they ruined her character. It was a character assassination. So, and
Mhm.
even the own creators of the movie, and Sam Raimi, I think he didn't even watch the show. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? You're
Oh,
you're supposed to watch what you're supposed to be continuing here. That's essential. And he is the guy that worked on Xena for years. He's not
you
only
know what?
Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 director. He's actually the brother of Ted Raimi, who is one of the, he's Jockster in Xena. And he actually is in Spider-Man. And Lucy Lawless Xena is actually in Spider-Man 1 for a cameo of 2 seconds. That's just other stuff. But yeah, basically, I mean, why haven't you watched the freaking show? Because then I'm pretty sure that he would know that what they did to Wanda is not okay for the character. Yeah.
I can understand maybe why he didn't, because look at the current Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's like you got to do homework. You have to do homework, and maybe they've made too much. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people. Marvel should have stopped after Endgame, but they couldn't, because they made promises that they were going to keep on doing all this all over again, more Marvel movies. When in reality, there should have been a pause to it. But you can't put a pause to it, because the corporations, the CEOs want that fast profit, and they also want to have a film out saying, we have the first so and so, or we have a brand new version of this character, or we have a new interpretation of this character, and it's going to bring in the views. When in fact now when you have even Disney admitting that they are incapable of recouping the money they spent to buy Star Wars off of George Lucas, that says that they are in trouble financially. Now, because they got investors like BlackRock or Vanguard, you know, they're going to be all right. But that means more influence from BlackRock and Vanguard to control the media spectrum, and that in turn also helps create people who have to write these articles who say something or this or that is problematic, because it's all about finding the next big thing to get clickbaits and to get views. And that's show business, unfortunately. But here's where the fans actually have power, and it's been done before. We've seen fans reject Star Wars in comics, not because they hate it, but because of the direction that it's went and how it's been disrespectful to decades and decades of consumer loyalship. All right. When you have all this loyalty towards an IP, it is said company's best interest to keep the base satisfied. If you're going to a steakhouse, I want to order a steak, okay? Be it, a ribeye steak, porterhouse, whatever, you name it. I'm not going to go to a steakhouse and then somebody just says, "Hey, here's the salad. We have no steak. We're called a steakhouse, but from here on out, you're eating salad."
Here's a
That's
soy
not
steak. It's not good for you, but here it
why I'm
is.
here. That's not why I'm here. I'm here for a steak.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, you're right, of course, that the GW are not in a position to behave this way against the fans. I mean, those fans stuck with them for more than 30 years, some of them. And some of them are new, but they are adopting the same mentality as the older fans, which is we like 40k for what it is, and we don't want it to change. It's for a reason a grimdark universe with manly men and feminine women, actually from the other, I mean, from the aliens as well. A lot of people mentioned, of course, the cool women in the Eldar and the Tau. So there are cool female characters all over the place. Maybe not amongst the orcs, but who cares about that? Like, who cares?
Well,
The orcs are just spores. They're just whatever. So if Games Workshop wants to write a story about uh, like a sock. For example, they have the right to write the story about the sock, and you don't need to assign any gender to the sock. It's just a sock, okay? Stop it.
Wh- actually, Light Wolf in the live stream chat, he brings this up and says, "I find it's so weird too because they are doing this when we have 3D printing technology available." Yeah, Games Workshop, the fans can also do an Uno reverse on you as well. I like saying it, Uno reverse card on you, because now they have the power to do what they want. But you have people who will be more than willing to buy the miniatures and stay loyal. But if you are going to be spitting and talking down upon your consumer base, well, the consumer base will be like, well, we'll just do this. I mean, we're lucky that Games Workshop hasn't pushed any further or has done anything else stupid that would enrage the base, in which no one's going to want to tune in or support anything further with Games Workshop, because it's people only could take disrespect for so long. People can only be insulted for so long until they finally say enough is enough and I will move on. I am ever hopeful that maybe Games Workshop could reverse this decision or be like, all right, guys, we heard it from you guys. We realized we messed up. We want to really expand the lore. We're sorry. All they have to do is say that they're sorry. Otherwise, they'll get the same treatment that Doctor Who fans gave to Doctor Who, Lord Rings fans gave to the Rings of Power. Because when you fire the Rings of Power lore master, the person who knows the lore, and you try and do your own interpretation, you're already inviting disaster, and then the fandom has every right to give you the middle finger.
Oh, yes,
Same
that
thing
was
for
gloriously huge freaking fail. Just fire the one person that actually know what the heck you're supposed to be doing here. Stupid people. Jesus.
and Kimnell brings up activists first, businessmen second. If GW crashes and burns, these people move to the next company. And you also have your venture capitalists, these corporatists who come in swooping into a company, and well, since the name venture slash vulture, they go in and tear the company from the inside out and try and squeeze as much profit as they can. Everything that we're seeing right now in entertainment is short term profit. When in reality, if you want to be a successful businessman, if you want to be successful in business, businessman, businesswoman, okay, you have to have long-term strategy. You have to have the plan of, okay, we're starting here and we want to be here 5 years, 10 years down the road. Slow and steady does win the race. And yes, you have to take risk in business in order to get some profit. I get it. I understand that part. But if you are just always trying to find the next big hit, you could get lucky, but then you're having this gambling addiction, or use it at this need to constantly get more and more and more super fast, when that's not how things work. And consumers now are putting their foot down because consumers want to be entertained. We have this crazy election that's coming here in my country, and there's, so much anger and resentment. People are not engaged as much, or people are just don't care. People want to escape. And when you have, times being as tough as they are here, um, be respected if people just want to have time to just turn their brain off and not get lectured to. I am more than willing to hear different perspectives and points of view. I've talked to libertarians and Greens and Democrats and Republicans, people who are boomers, millennials, Gen Xers, Gen Z. It's important to hear different perspectives, right? And talk to people. But when it comes down to fun and escapism and respecting things that people do cherish, because people do cherish these science fiction and comic and fantasy adventures, then it should be respected because that's what people view as their myths and legends. Just like how in antiquity, the ancient Greeks and Romans and the Egyptians had their gods and heroes and stories, so do we, but now they're just being thrown into the trash and people are angry about it. And that's why where HellDivers succeeds is okay, we're here to take care of the base. That's right. You tell him, puppy dog, in the background.
Well, actually, I muted my mic, so now you can hear
Ah,
him.
okay.
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to say that, to add, I will wait for my corgi to stop, but to not lose my train of thought that GW is not going to be loyal to the fans, then why the heck are the fans should be, loyal to GW? It's a two-way thing. I mean, two-way stream.
Mhm.
So, that's one thing. And I mean, you said a lot of things. I kind of lost my train of thought, really. Damn it.
I'm
Okay,
so sorry. I'm so
yeah.
sorry.
But there are so many things that you said, and Sunny barked, and I'm like, what the heck was it? You English muffin, you! Stop it! Because he's a corgi. Okay, thinking what it was. So you said a lot of things about the escapism, and yeah, of course, yeah, it's important to hear other people's opinions. In my country, the political situation is not very different. People are basically in total resentment over everything. They don't want to even go to vote. But if we don't, then a lot more. Yeah, things are going to get a lot worse in general. But anyway, that. Uh, yeah, so I think that it's very easy if people just have their own opinions based on some kind of a principles and moral compass, and you can easily see how things were before and how things are now and why they're messed up. You can just easily see that. And even if you ask some people that are from the LGBT community here, they also hate this. They also hate the parades, the pandering, the propaganda side of things. They just want to be left alone and have their personal lives be left personal, how it should be. That's one of the reasons why you should not post pictures of your girlfriend or boyfriend on social media all the time, because basically you are just like parading yourself and your significant other this way. This is something that I'm
Mhm.
personally against. Just live your life, be personal, and that's it. So all of this is a part of the same principles in general,
Mhm.
to have some kind of a moral compass about these things and just measure them case by case basis. Sometimes you just have to be objective on the spot about something. And when you have good people from all the communities that they also don't want this brainwashing ways of doing things, then maybe, just maybe, uh, we at least that have some kind of a reason here have to talk about those things. And that is what we are doing here. We are talking about those things because at the end of the day, when they are entering our own our own even escapism, worlds in which we have to escape in, that is just shattering, could be shattering to us in a like deeper level. But that is what I wanted to say, that from my comments again from the last few streams, some people said that it doesn't matter because it's fictional and we are getting our panties in a bunch because of female custodes, or oh, gender swap, or women are scaring you. Is that it? So they go with this condescending tone and emphasizing the fact that this is nothing. The way that Bricky did it, it's a dismissive way of brainwashing people and just say that this is not important. But as we all know, whatever we cherish, even if it's not real, it has meaning, it's art, it's a human expression. Those worlds, those characters in these worlds are telling stories and presenting morals that can reflect the real world a lot of the times when you see a character growth
Mhm.
and what they're representing as a character to, how they really matter to other people. That are some inspiring stuff that are some kind of a mirror to what people can achieve in real life. It's just a metaphor. You can also use other metaphors, of course, in fiction. So all of that is art. Is like poetry on screen, but literally with visuals and sound. So to say that that does not matter and we are getting upset about stupid things, those things are not stupid things if they have meaning and if a lot of people put their minds and souls into creating these universes, and you can't just dismiss them. I even watched one guy, I forgot his name, but he's a guy that paints figures on YouTube, and he even made a video about how we just want to argue. We just enjoy arguing and it's fun to argue, so that's why we're doing it. And I wrote a
Mhm.
comment and saying like, oh sure, let's just forget about all the morals and principles and just say that this is silly, and this is just because people want to argue. I don't know about a lot of people, but me personally, I don't like conflicts. I don't like to argue for no reason. I like reason, literally, and to talk like normal, civilized people. So for me to be upset about something is not my desire to be upset about something. I'm just witnessing something that I feel is unjust, and I'm just talking about it because that is how I feel. And this feeling is based not on feelings, really, it's based on real life principles and how we treat our art and our expression through this art that we call different movies, shows, comic books, lore, books, and so on. So to just dismiss all of that and use it as an excuse to step on the lore and just do whatever you want with any types of lore. It's just like a straw man argument. Just does not have any value because automatically it devalues itself, basically.
You know, again, very solid points. And looking at HellDivers, for example, brand new, and of course, anytime you have something newer that's vastly popular, there's always going to be that person be trying to poke a hole or sniff around and see if they could find some trouble or something that's deemed problematic. What it is, because people told you what you like to argue. Well, there are people who like to instigate fights and cause arguments or cause trouble. So it's a two-way street. It's easy to go after or start blaming fans who are like really do believe in said lore or stories. But it's another thing too to shine a light on those that do it just because to systematically say, well, Star Wars has a problem, Star Trek has a problem, Warhammer 40k has a problem. What is the problem and what was it that caused you that? Because I'm willing to bet 99.99% of the community does not condone the actions of one bad apple or one bad person. I'm pretty sure anyone is going to say, hey, dude or lady, you're being a jerk, you're being a jagoff, get out of here. It just comes with the territory. And, life is not a safe space. Life is not a community arts college center. You are going to run into bullies. I'm 39 years old and I've ran into my fair share of people who still have that high school bully mentality or who are still a jerk or anything of that nature. And you're going to run into them when you're born into this world, going through preschool, all the way up until the day you die. You're going to run into people who are just jerks, who are problematic, and who are, yes, maybe bigoted, racist, or just downright mean, evil people. But they make up a minority of the population, and not one group or institution or fan base should be smeared or slandered in a way because of one person. And the reason why a lot of the fandom is defending games, or not defending, but calling out Games Workshop is because you guys wrote all of this in here, and now you're asking us to dismiss everything for a key faction and say that women have been around in the custodians for 10,000 years. Do you have any idea just what kind of break that is? And while the custodians may not be created the same way as a Primarch or a space marine, it can be generally assumed that there are some similarities in that process. And I don't think I would have had a problem with this if the story was done properly. If you're just going to say it was just like that, it's always been like that. No, that's lazy. And if we look at HellDivers, they've made it very clear that yes, Super is fighting for democracy, but once you see past the satire, and everyone does, like, oh wow, this is a horrific government. Oh, those cyborgs, turns out they're people. Those bugs, oh yeah, we're killing them just to get the oil. That third alien faction, were they really hostile or did we act hostile? But the thing is, people see that lore. Imagine if someone said, well, Super Earth was always peaceful and that's how it's always been. No, no. Super Earth is a militaristic, hyper military government, okay? And it's satire. It is supposed to be made fun of. But the lore is, hey, this is the government that Super Earth says that it is. But in reality, it's something far darker, but people are not focusing on that. They're having fun playing a game. They know the lore. People are not stupid. People have time to read and look things up. Because after playing a game, maybe people are sharing discussions about their play session. Hey, wow, I didn't know this about the lore. I didn't know that about the lore. But they're asking about it. They're not going to be talked down to or be called stupid. But in this case with Games Workshop, they have time is not on their side to where they have to kind of really go to the fan base and, dare I say, maybe apologize or do a reverse course or say, hey, we're going to look more detail into a female custodian. If they were able to just do that, then I think the fan base would forgive them. But they have to show the effort of caring for their fan base, which I think what we all saw with Star Wars and Star Trek and Marvel and Doctor Who. I'm afraid to say I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be more of lecturing and finger wagging.
Yeah, well, Doctor Who is one of the most long-running shows ever, if not the longest, I think. Especially
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi show. Well, it's gonna end pretty soon if that continues, if that crap continues. I never watched it myself, but I know what it is about. And you actually brought up a very good point. So, some of the comments, once again, was about the fact that because Warhammer is a satire, because, a lot of people are saying how Warhammer is actually a satire, so we shouldn't be taking it as seriously as we are taking it. But then again, I don't know, in my own experience with Warhammer, although maybe it has started this way and the world is created with the thought that is a satire of whatever it is, a satire of, is not written and does not come across this way. It come across the total opposite, like a very, very, very serious universe, and it barely has any comedy in it, like real comedy, direct comedy. There was some comedy in that Belisarius Skull versus Fabius Bao book, which is absolutely hilarious, but that came very, very naturally with the situation that we had on our hands then. So it's fine when a comedy is like interjected seamlessly and it goes with the story. It's all good. It does not take away of the seriousness of the situation actually, and that's good
Mm-hmm.
writing, by the way. So I don't think that even, I mean, I don't know how myself I have to take Warhammer as satire, where everything about it that I have read and all the novels and all of that, it comes across like a totally serious universe. And even if it wasn't, like you said, a great example with Helldivers, it still uses this lore to show you that things are pretty freaking serious and bad things are happening in this universe and to the people that live there, to the alien factions as well. And there's threats all over the universe. And if it's not the orcs, the Tyranids are going to come for you, or the Necrons. Who else? I mean, someone else. So it's not like the stakes aren't real. It's not like the characters are not serious about what they're doing. It's not like the Emperor is not seriously considering taking chaos. I don't know what is this a satire of, if it's supposed to reflect something in our own real world, because it does not come across this way. But whatever, point being that Warhammer has substance and meaning in it, and all of those things that are written as stories and characters, they cannot just be dismissed because one person thinks that it's supposed to be funny all the time. Like what? This isn't just doesn't make any sense to me.
I do want to bring this up here because you talk about satire, and I see where the satire is. Like you could see it in the miniatures. For example, you have the orcs and their ridiculousness. You have the Eldar and their fancy way of declaring war, and then of course you have the Imperium and all of its weapons. I think it's just more of the the satire is like, okay, you have this horrific government, and then you have these weapons of war, absolute destruction, but the story's told in a serious perspective. And yes, we can laugh at the imagery of the orcs and some of their crazy stuff that they do, or from any other faction, but it's told in a way where it's not insulting or like, oh, ha ha ha. We're laughing with the story. We're not laughing at the story and deeming it just be stupid and childish. It's more of, oh, okay, that's pretty funny. But our characters are in a dangerous situation because everyone's going to die. And of course, Warhammer being the story that it is, don't get so close to your characters because they might die a very horrific, and I'm going to say this again one more time, horrific death. And it's just everything's taken over the top. But people view these stories with passion and love because it's their way of escaping, and it's their way of, I don't know, being part of a universe that's so over the top. And I for one love that. I love the fact that you have a dedicated fan base, and to see it potentially, dare I say, get stepped on by Games Workshop. You did this once before by going after fan-made creators who made art and video game, or movies on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Why are you disrespecting people? And I get that you have to protect your intellectual property, but why would you do this? Because now what this custodian thing is, what it amplified and the pushback that Games Workshop did to the fans is people remembered what Games Workshop did the last time when it went after fans. And people haven't forgiven Games Workshop. They were able to forget it for a while and move on, but when you reopen that wound, third time's a charm. People just might officially walk away, and good luck getting a new consumer base because your whole business model is creating miniatures and doing video games and books. People aren't buying all three. You're going to have to declare bankruptcy, or use that close the door. You got to respect the lore of the fans. You have to respect the people that made you who you are, because if you're not going to do that, people will move on. People will be sad about it, but they will move on, especially if you keep on spitting in their face. And, I don't want to see that happen in Games Workshop, but you have to, if you're going to make a coherent story, make it make sense. If you're going to tell me that there's female custodians, why? Maybe it's just me shooting from the hip here, but if I were to tell the fact there's a female custodian, instead of saying there's around for 10,000 years, you can then say, you could have like a male custodian observing this female custodian, and at the end it reveals like, in over 10,000 years we've never had a woman succeed our trials. This calls into question maybe they're all in a state of shock that a woman survived it, and she was the only one. Like, it's a rarity, so freaking rare that there's a woman custodian. Not saying there's going to be a whole legion of them, but instead say, wow, one woman survived all of this. The odds are and maybe in turn, she's like favored by the emperor to do a great deed, maybe a great task, maybe to help Gilliman in the crusade, maybe help Gilliman find one of the long lost Primarchs, like I don't know, let's
Yeah, like a
say
very, very,
Vulcan,
very cool anomaly of sorts, but in a
yeah,
very, very good way. That's gonna be so awesome. I'll be all
yeah,
up for that. I mean, I like that
yeah,
idea because then you're going to put a lot of character into her, maybe
yeah,
some
and who she is.
abilities, and maybe we will know how she actually got there, what is about her, maybe some kind of a mystery about her origin, something, something, something. Maybe she's like a daughter of the emperor.
Right,
Somehow, I
right.
don't know.
Or ease with that, she could have been like a sensei, and maybe that's how she was able to survive the trial and the training, or something of that nature. Or she could be a descendant of the emperor, and they don't know it. All right, so that could be the case. And we have a person in here who says, "I'm a tourist, so tell me if I'm wrong, but 40k has had a few retcons before, but nothing radical that breaks the spirit of the lore." This one kind of is because,
This one is, and
right, yeah.
the
Go ahead.
retcons are more like additions to the lore, something like a tectonic plates that try to fall into place, to form more of, let's say, the Necron's lore. So it's a lot more like an addition to make things more cohesive rather than it's a retcon. Whereas here, it's a total change from something that was already established to be so and so. So yeah, things are
Yeah.
totally different now. If there weren't, people were not going to react as they did.
Yeah. And I would say to Games Workshop, you should have done. There was a way you could, because this one female custodian, you could have made a story about her and maybe her journey to help Gilliman or help the Emperor or find another Primarch, or I don't know, face off against one of the traitor Primarchs, something of that nature, or she does something, or maybe signs a peace treaty with the Silent King, something of that nature. I don't know. I'm shooting from the hip here, but you could have done something. You could have done something that wouldn't have been a lore breaker, but would have been like, oh, interesting. And maybe it would have also shined a light on the process of how difficult it would be for a custodian, for a female
To be
custodian to exist,
made.
or a woman space marine to be made. Because the only other person who has said he outdid the Emperor was Fabius Bile. He said, I made one of these entities, a proto space marine, a woman, and it's a woman. And he was so saddened by her fatal wound, like the amount of energy, probably because he found like the perfect candidate to go through that transformation. It must be extremely difficult, and there could have been acknowledgement on that. And I think the fans would have embraced a character like that. But if you say it's been around for 10,000 years, where have they been? Where have they been? And then you kind of make them null and void because there's a lot of lore in which custodians played a key role during the Great Crusade and the Heresy and afterwards.
Exactly. So if you created the female custodian but added it to the lore and not say that it was always been there, and you actually gave her real character to her, real purpose, real origins, give some information about the whole process because it's a mystery, it's a secret, all those things, just enough to make us understand why this is so special, then you're going to just have not a retcon but a very interesting addition to the lore that will not actually affect the custodes on the tabletop. She is just going to be an individual that will go on these special missions probably for the Emperor, helping Gilliman, fighting side by side, maybe talk between, maybe she can have like a connecting talk between her and the lion, who knows. She could be a very interesting character, but instead of that we're just getting none of anything that makes any sense and actually is enrichment to the lore. So there we go. And also, I just can't believe that the Games Workshop are willing to spit on their own quality that has been building up for more than 35 years now. What the heck? What the heck? What is the
Mhm.
respect here for their own IP?
Yeah, well, then also because you have some writers who are trying to struggle in Hollywood, trying to get their scripts out, or either that build up enough points to where they can eventually do their own film. So they attach themselves to intellectual properties that are already existent. But many people, and we've seen this in many movies and TV shows, Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, Marvel Comics, DC Comics, all that kind of stuff, who don't like the characters or who have never read or saw an original movie of said brands that I mentioned. And you have people who will hate it and just be there, just glad to be working until they've rubbed enough elbows or did whatever kind of crazy stuff you do in Hollywood to get on by. And let's face it, folks, Hollywood is a place you don't want to mess around with. But that's just my opinion. Hollywood is a cesspool. Be careful of it. You're going to have people who want to just kick the ladder down as soon as they're up on top of the wall. And fans be damned, IP be damned, because they want to just make themselves into something that's far more relevant. And it already, if these companies aren't seeing it, look at right now the fight that's happening at Disney. They're hemorrhaging money, and while their investors will protect them from full on bankruptcy, they have given such a middle finger to people who would show up for their products that now no one wants to show up anymore. When you put it in front of people's faces for so long, they're not going to want it. It's like a nice cake. Having a delicious cake is nice and filling, yes, but if you eat it all the time, it's going to make you miserable and it's going to ruin you. And same thing too. Here's a new Marvel movie. Here's a new Star Wars. Here's a new this. Eventually, I'm going to get tired of it. What made Star Wars great is how little it was, how few and far between you got like some great Star Wars movies or content. Same thing for Star Trek. And while yes, Star Trek there was always a TV series, it wasn't to the point to where you were being lectured to. It wasn't to the point to where, at least you had people really care about the story because you had dedicated lore masters. And when they're cast aside, everything's up for grabs. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope HellDivers and the studio there learned the lesson of GW, and I hope GW quickly does a reverse on this quickly because the next time this happens, GW, don't expect people to come back.
Oh yes, and of course also Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate is a good example as well
Right,
of
right, right.
standing their ground and just being like, we are just gonna make a solid game, and that's it. Also, I had one quick thought. Oh yes, because you mentioned that you're going to get tired of it. I had a thought. Well, you know how they were mentioning that we are going to get superhero fatigue because all the movies. Well,
Mhm.
actually, the only fatigue that we can get because of more superhero movies is if the superhero movies quality falls off a cliff, which happens. So that is when you're getting
Mhm.
the fatigue. When it's becomes like McDonald's hamburgers. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
Then you just like blah.
yeah, well, yeah, because let's put in comparison. Let's say you go to, oh, I don't know, get a Gordon Ramsay hamburger, right? And there's a difference between a Gordon Ramsay hamburger and then of course then you got the McDonald's fast food hamburger, right? And it's just like okay, these two are different, night and day, right? And the McDonald's hamburger, you call into question just how overall excited you are to have a bite out of it. It's just something there that's bland, uninspiring, and people are just there showing up. I mean, when the Marvel Cinematic Universe was a thing, people talked about it. Everybody talked about it because everyone was having fun. Now people are not having fun. And there was a way Disney could have done this if they just waited 10 years. Let's say they let everything, how about 5 years? Rehire a bunch of new actors to play Captain America or Tony Stark or Black Panther or Thor, and it would have been fine. You could have just told these stories over and over again. It could have been like a James Bond kind of universe. Yeah, same. These are the same characters. We just hired a different actor to play them. Because people do grow old, and that happens, and maybe someone gets tired of playing the same role. There was so much that could have been done, but only short term profit. And I think that's what we got to learn here. Games Workshop has a short term mentality, and Helldivers has a long term plan, and that is keep your consumers happy. Helldivers as a game, I've been seeing people play it. There's going to be so much content potentially that could be put in there for people to be playing for the next few years. That game is literally spewing out money. That's a long term goal. Keep people happy, keep the community happy, and that's how you succeed as a business.
Absolutely. And Vasak also brought a great point that because GW solutions have long been in question and pricing policy and in general the behavior towards their fans because their target audience has long been not fans but investors. Yes, of course. And also there was a female character in the Inquisitor Martyr game. I have played only a bit of this game, so I didn't reach that part. Probably. Sure. Well, if there is, they should just flesh her out more if she's that interesting. Really, why not? Alpha Pariah? Yeah, never heard of her, but I gotta check. Guys, we are very late. I mean, we're
Oh,
here
right.
for 1 hour and 13 minutes.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
yeah, we should. I mean, we do have to go, unfortunately, because it's gonna become midnight here. And I do need to do a lot of other stuff before that, unfortunately. But still, guys, this is ongoing story, and we are going to cover it as much as we can, me and Kit when he is available as well. So there's always something more to be said about this, guys. But I would say just keep true to what you really want to see, and don't let companies to change their recipes from a Golden Ramsay's burger to a McDonald's hamburger. Yeah,
Great note to end it on. Thank you for inviting me on your show, and more than happy to collaborate in the future as well. Just keep on doing the great work.
Thank you so. And of course, guys, if you want to support me, the links are down below to Patreon and my own coaching services with fitness, health, nutrition at OnlyFans, which I do not use for Slaaneshy things, but I use it for really for good and coaching you guys into your, I mean, how to have better intimate relationships, how to have better health, and everything that has to do with life. Basically, I'm there for you guys. My own physique updates and how I'm doing with my own fitness journey, all that done with taste and with total lack of Slaanesh and recipes for McDonald's hamburgers. Okay, guys, love you so. Have a great new week, and we are going to see each other very soon, if not tomorrow. Love you.